It is Beaver banter once again. I'm CJ Baumgartner.
And Ian Rivers, my co-host here, and we are talking all the latest in Bemidji State athletics. Ian, we were just talking before we started recording here, and if Bemidji State athletics were going bowling with you, you'd hate them because they pick up every single split imaginable. And that's pretty much been the theme of today's podcast as well, or will be, because it has been in the past. Bemidji State hockey splitting over the weekend against Lake State. Just talk a little bit, Ian, about your emotions. A little bit of a frustrating weekend for the Beavs.
Well, yeah, I mean, picking up every split in bowling is actually like a really good thing. But I think, like what else we brought up was, man, it'd be nice to get a strike every once and then they're like, no, I gotta get the splits. It's got to be a spare. It can't be a strike. So that's very frustrating. And I've been listening back a little bit to our old pods, just to see my language a little bit, see what I do that annoys myself, so that I can try to avoid that for future pods, and see if what we talked about, see if any of it came true. And I feel like the whole season we've been talking about, oh man, this weekend's going to be big to tell us what the Beavers are actually going to be. And I feel like all along they've been telling us to our
They've been
face, like, we are mediocre, man. Get that through your head. And it's like,
they are who we thought they were, and we're letting them off the hook.
Yeah, pretty much. It's frustrating, but that's it's just who we are. And maybe we had the expectations a bit high, but when you go out and win a game against the number two team in the country early on like that, and you take 5 points out of 6 from an early season against Tech on the road, expectations got a little bit too high.
Go on
and
the
then,
road against Minnesota State.
Yeah, and then all these games against the bottom 4 in the league, and you can't sweep a single one of them. You can't pick up 6 points out of 6 from any series so far this weekend. We've only got 4 more opportunities to make that happen. So um, we'll see. Going forward, it's going to be there's still a lot to play for. When you look at the standings, we can still get anywhere between first and eighth. If we pick up like a couple points, then mathematically we could technically lock up at least the 7 seed. But I don't foresee us dropping down that far either way. It's just like the 1 in 100 chance that it actually did happen. Technically, we still could. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. I'll kind of touch on that, but did you want to touch on any of the National Signing Day stuff first?
Yeah, we'll get. I think since we've started down I know we just talked about this before we started the podcast, and I went
going.
rogue.
We're already
so
down the rabbit hole. Let's just stay there.
we'll stay there we'll touch on National Signing Day for football later in the podcast. But yeah, with the hockey team this weekend, or the last weekend, I mean, there's some positive stuff you can touch on. I mean, if you look, I think I just had the article here. I'll pull up a second. Road getting the Rookie of the Week for the CCHA. There's some. I mean, having 2 goals on the weekend. One being the decider on Friday night, and then one on Saturday to kind of keep it at a 1-goal game. But I mean, he's been a positive bright spot. There have been some bright spots, but yeah, whether it's inexperience or whether it's just not quite being good enough, it's really reared its head for the Beavs throughout the year.
Yeah, Leighton Road. He did not score on Friday night. He got an assist on the Lundman goal.
That's what it was. Yeah,
with 17 seconds remaining in the game. And yeah, Friday night was like one of the worst performances I've seen in the first period. I'm like, wow, this is really what you're laying on the road against one of the worst teams in college hockey. And then it wasn't pretty, but they battled back and they got 2 goals, courtesy of Ross Armour, both on the power play, and tied the game up. And then they were able to steal a game in the last 2 minutes, in the last 15 seconds, well, nearly. And they stole points on the road. And I'm thinking, maybe if Saratori can get in their ear and say that was unacceptable, because, that's kind of what he did. Matthias Scholl had a boneheaded mistake with 2 minutes left in the first period, turned into Tyler Williams' goal for the Lakers, and it made it 2-0, and that was it for Scholl. Saratori pulled him out of the game.
What was the mistaking for those who didn't quite catch the game? What was it? What happened?
So he decided to go play the puck in the corner when there was already like 2 or 3 players over there, or he just held it too long in the corner. Man, I can barely remember at this point which of the two it was, but I think he just held on to the puck way too long in the corner. And by the time he tried to get it out of there, it got deflected. And then there was a diving attempt at the puck and he swatted in the net. And it's like, wow, that's like a perfect encapsulation of what has been going on. And we were really lucky to be only down 2-0. And then, you fight back and you get that win. And then you turn around on Saturday night and it's like the exact same game script almost, but it's the complete opposite. We dominated the game. Leighton Rowe did get a goal there. Ross Armour had his third goal of the season or of the series in the first period. Rowe scored just like a minute and a half after Harrison Roy to give us back the 1-goal lead. And then a goal about halfway through the third period tied it up. And then 13 seconds left in the game. What else? It's a goal for Lake Superior State on the power play because we took a stupid penalty with 2 minutes left in the game. And sometimes that's actually not terrible because if you have a good penalty kill unit, it allows you to just throw the puck down the ice. And sometimes when you're in that 2-minute situation where you're up by a goal, you can't just do that because you're going to ice the puck, but there's no icing on a penalty kill. But the problem is the Beavers, I've seen it all year, man. They have such a difficult time. They try to be too cute, whatever it is. As soon as the puck is on your stick, get it out of the zone. Throw it down the ice. Don't try to waste 2 or 3 extra seconds by skating to the right and then trying to throw it off the boards. Oh, great. Now I hit the defender. And that's how we gave up a goal. It's going to have to be a postseason thing, but I'm going to probably go back and look at all of the goals that we gave up in the last 2 minutes that cost us a result. I guarantee you at least 5 of them, of the 7, have been on some silly turnover or the inability to clear the puck out of the defensive zone. And literally with only 13 seconds left in the game, that clearance would have at least ensured us 4 or 5 points on the weekend instead of just getting 3 and the split. And that's huge as we're going to talk about, the season standings. And now, like I said, that to me tells me that we're not probably in title contention. I mean, obviously we still could be, but we'd have to go out and get 6 points or at least 5 this weekend at home against Michigan Tech. And we always play Tech tough. And so the weird thing
12th
is
in the country, Michigan Tech, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they are. The thing is, like every game you watch, Bemidji State could win. I truly think that when I watch them, but they just don't. And so it's hard for me to sit here and say that Michigan Tech is actually just going to bully us off the ice, because if we got pushed around by Lake Superior State, who is the worst team in Division I college hockey, they were 60th out of 62 teams coming in, and they were 61st on the game Saturday night. There are 62 teams in college hockey. They're ranked in pairwise. They were 61st. The only team below them is Stonehill, and they've played 1 game. They're currently making the full-time transition to Division I. They've played 1 game on the season so far. They're 0-1. That's why they're 62nd. So the worst team in college hockey just beat you. Meanwhile, Mankato and Tech went on the road and swept their opponents in the bottom half of the conference. So they could take care of business. We couldn't. It's kind of been the story of the season. But like I said, the race for that top 4 spot, it starts now. And if you're going to take anything positive for the weekend, it is that Michigan Tech swept Northern Michigan and Mankato swept Ferris State, and we got 3 points. So we gained 3 points on the 4th position. You know what I mean? We put a buffer between that. So that's the silver lining to this weekend. But we could have stayed alive in the title race. All you had to do was really hold on. And man, it just looks like sometimes they're playing soccer out there. They've got that 1-goal lead in the 3rd period, and they start to tense up, and they just dump it in. And they have one guy go down in the corner and try to hold it there as long as he can while they're making a line change. And then they just back off the play. They just back off. They don't put that many shots on in the 3rd period when they're up. It's just kind of a relaxed offensive attack, and they just try to buckle up on defense. The problem is when you're doing that for 18 minutes, it's hockey. They're going to be able to put a lot of shots on net. In soccer, it's a lot harder to get quality chances. In hockey, man, if you got the puck in the neutral zone for 10 minutes or in the offensive zone for 10 minutes of the 18, it's going to be tough to hold them out. And that's why I think we've seen that break at the end of the games for so many points lost so far this season for the Beavers. But, all things said, we've got a big weekend here. And, the only chance you're going to have, even of jumping up to number 2, Michigan Tech does play Mankato later on the season. So let's say hypothetically, we do come out with like 5 or 6 points this weekend, making up a bunch of ground on Tech. And then we continue to have a good rest of our season, split with Mankato, maybe sweep Ferris State. And then it comes down to the last weekend. Mankato sweeps Michigan Tech. and we sweep St. Thomas, we could end up with the 2 seed, even if Mankato still ends up winning the CCHA. So it's still possible. It's just going to be a lot harder. We do have a lot of ground to make up. But it's got to start, this weekend. You got to just take it one weekend at a time. Focus on getting home ice for at least one playoff series, and then hope for some road magic like you had last year. I think that's the most realistic, possibility. Get that home series for the first weekend when it really matters, when it's a best of 3, and then, if you got to go on the road and beat Tech, we've done it. If you got to go on the road and beat Mankato, we've done it. So it's just a 1-game series at that point. So I think that's just our best route. It's been a little bit of a disappointing season, but we were picked 4th in the preseason polls in the CCHA. That's where we currently sit. So I guess we can't be too upset. And we have seen some flashes, like you said, Leighton Road doing really good for the Beavers this year. He's probably been like one of the better freshmen that we've ever seen so far for the Beavers. But I do want to touch on Saturday night. Just if you're interested in going, it is apparently Make-A-Wish night. You can get $5 general admission tickets with code MAKEAW. That is MAKEAW. And then you can get 10% off all other tickets at the box office. That's for Saturday night's game at 6:07 against Michigan Tech. They're really trying to get people out to the Sanford Center for this game because it is a pretty big weekend. You got the number 2 team in the CCHA and a top 12 opponent in the country coming into your building. They're going to want revenge. So it's going to be a big series this weekend.
Yeah, going to be a huge series. And like you said, they always play Michigan Tech tough. And the way I can already picture this series, I can already picture how this is going to go. There's a split. Bemidji State's going to play just unbelievably well one night and beat Tech. And then there's going to be a night where they either play great and still lose, or one where the wheels just fall completely off. But I think just based on how this season has gone, no matter who they play, they split. So I think I'm going to go with a split. I feel like one of these games is going to overtime. I don't know which one, but that's how I feel like this weekend's shaking up.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're taking 2 or 3 points this weekend. If we get a win, it'll probably be that Friday. That's what it's going to be. That's what it's always been. Every big weekend we seem to show up on Friday, get our hopes up, and think, yeah, if we can just win Saturday, we're back in the race, and then we lose, 4-0 or something like that on Saturday. But I think it'll be a close game Friday. Maybe it does go to overtime. Maybe we steal 2 points and we think, if we can win tomorrow night, that's 5 points on the weekend. But yeah, I think a split here is most likely the scenario. Anything over 3 points, even 3 points, I'd be happy with. Technically, even 2 points, I would probably be okay with. At this point, it's the second best team. They're a very quality opponent. If you can just get 2 points from them and then consider, going on the road at Ferris State and hopefully picking up 4 or 5 there, but if we get, 1 or 0, it's a negative weekend. Anything more than 3, I'm ecstatic. So,
yeah,
I do predict a split too. That's probably the most likely outcome.
And now with hockey, let's kind of pivot here to women's basketball. Bemidji State stopped the losing streak. The Lady Beavs got a win over Sioux Falls 65-61, that game at the BSU Gymnasium. They got their 6th win of the year. They're 3-13 in the NSIC. If you look at how this game stacked up, Alyssa Hill led the Beavs with 17 points. Trinity Yoder chipped in 6. Isabel Majeski had 15, and Hojanik had 13, as well as chipping in 2 free throws at the end to kind of seal the deal for the Beavs. Good win. Not really much to say. Got a conference win, got it at home. Just kind of got what you could. Now they go on the road. They have Minot State, UMary, have a chance to split again this weekend. So that's your update for women's basketball. Ian, let's talk about men's basketball because they've been really the team that's been catching momentum as the winter has gone on. Early on there was a lot of momentum for men's hockey, and then just as the winter has gone on, they've kind of plateaued a little bit in terms of expectations. We have the men's basketball team who's exceeded expectations and put themselves in a good position throughout the season, and they split over the weekend. They got the win against the Mustangs, and then playing the top team in the South, University of Sioux Falls Cougars, they lose by 1 in overtime.
That's heartbreaking.
I mean, and also John Sutherland wins his third NSIC Player of the Week after this weekend as well. But yeah, Ian, you got a chance to catch a little bit of that Sioux Falls game late. What did you see? Because man, I mean, it's a tough team to play, but they had a win right there.
I actually didn't get to watch the Sioux Falls game at all. I was at work Saturday evening. We had somebody call out, so I had to stay a little bit later than I planned on it. And so I prioritized the hockey game against Lake State on my phone. And I did notice that we were up 3 in overtime with like 13 seconds left. And I'm like, oh, cool. I think they might pull it out, like 13 seconds. Maybe they're at the free throw line. And I wish I would have turned it to that game at that point, because I think what it was a turnover after a made basket for Sioux Falls, and they scored again to go up 1, and then Bemidji could not score with their final shot of the game. So really a heartbreaking way to lose that, because that split or that sweep would have gone a long way. When you're looking at the standings, Bemidji State would be 10-6 now in the conference, 4 games up over UMary and Minot State for that last playoff spot, and only a game behind Minnesota Duluth. And so you're knocking on the door potentially of maybe getting that 3 seed in the North Division. But now, that looks a little bit more or less attainable. But like you said, we have a huge weekend here. If we can split or sweep this weekend, it basically assures that we have a 4-game lead over both of these teams heading into only 4 games left in the season. So that would pretty much guarantee that Bemidji State would be going to the Pentagon to play in the NSIC basketball tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking here at just recapping the final 63 seconds in regulation. And Sioux Falls outscored the Beavers 8-2, including a 3-pointer at the buzzer to send the game to overtime. The Cougars' Matt Cartwright finished with 40 points against the Beavs. Mohamed Kone had 2 free throws with 21 seconds on the clock to give BSU a 3-point lead. Cartwright's 3-pointer tied it with 9 seconds remaining, and then Kone's close range shot just ahead of the buzzer fell off to send them throughout the overtime period. The Beavs went ahead by 4 with 1:15 left in overtime on a Kone 3-pointer, but Cartwright rebounded a 3-point miss, got the ball to Noah Putz, hit a 3 to make it 73-72. Sutherland had a layup with 40 seconds left, gave the Beavers a 3-point lead. Cartwright followed with a 3-point miss, and then was fouled with 31 seconds left on the rebound. He made both free throws, so it was 75-74. BSU turned the ball over. Cartwright go-ahead layup at the 17-second mark. Kone misfired on a jumper in the final seconds to end it. Bemidji State had a 13-point lead early in the second half, and the Cougars were able to come ahead. So that's a game for Bemidji that they played well, and by all intents and purposes, I mean, played just as good, if not better, than the top team in the South. They just couldn't seal the deal. And for whatever reason, I'm going to chalk it up to just Sioux Falls has been there before. They've won more games, and they just were a little more calm under that pressure, because you can feel it if you're Bemidji State. You're not supposed to win this game, and you know how good the other team is, and you think like, oh gosh, like here it comes. They're going to all of a sudden get the shot, and then they do, to force it to overtime. And then also you have that in the overtime period where you have seen it just happen to you like 10 minutes before, where they make a play and then you go, oh gosh, here it comes again. And they just weren't quite ready to kind of stop it. And they had several attempts to kind of bury it and close it out and just weren't able to do so. Sutherland had a great weekend. Kone had a nice game as well, just couldn't finish it off at the end. I mean, but overall, like you said, Ian, just a game that they should have had. I mean, when you're up, you can't give up an 8-2 run in the final minute 3 of a game and expect to win. And then you can't do the same thing in overtime. And rebounding, as believe it or not, like that's what we've talked about, rebounding, getting the boards. And not every missed shot is going to go your way. Sometimes the ball bounces, sometimes it's whatever. But based on those last few minutes, Ian, it's couldn't get a rebound to ice the game, and the other team and Sioux Falls was able to get a rebound and then allow it on a putback, or then get it beyond the arc to bury a 3. And it's just something that's come back.
There might be nothing in basketball that's less demoralizing than being down 1 possession, having a great defensive stop, and giving up an offensive rebound when you need the ball back, and then you have to resort to fouling. And it's probably the most demoralizing thing as a player and as a fan to have that happen to your team. I feel like every game the Wolves lost in the playoffs to the Grizzlies last year, it happened like that. Like they just could not rebound against that Grizzlies tandem inside, and it came back to cost them. And that, like you said, that's a big thing. And that's part of why the Beavers lost. It feels like that Sioux Falls game reminds me of that. I watched a little bit of the second half of the Upper Iowa game on January 6th, and they had a lead for most of the second half, and then Upper Iowa just went on a run with like 5 minutes left in the game, took the lead, and just never gave it back. And obviously, it's a little different where you could have stymied them off, Sioux Falls, that is. If they miss that 3-pointer, they don't go into overtime, you have a sweep on the weekend. So it's tough to lose like that, especially when you are trying to get um back to the tournament, I guess, back to the NSIC tournament at the very least. But I don't think it's a catastrophic result. I think we would have been happy with a split on the weekend. We probably said that, and now this is the weekend we really have to take care of business on, because the schedule after this is pretty stern. But I think that weekend does give me a lot of confidence going into like playing at home against Northern State and Moorhead. Like we just competed with Southwest and Sioux Falls, two of the better teams from the South Division. Who's to say we can't do it against MSUM and Northern State? So
Mm-hmm.
that does give me a pretty good amount of confidence in this team going forward.
Right. That's the thing. As frustrating as that loss was, it still lets you know that this team was able to run with the best team in the South Division. And the South Division's got some pretty good, got some historically some pretty good basketball teams in that mix. So for them to run with that, it's a nice little sign. Now it was at home, but still, like they played them tough, played them to overtime, and you hope that playing games like this, at least now the next time you play a team like Sioux Falls in a late game situation, you just been there before, you can play it a little better. Boshi knows maybe who to go to in a certain spot or how to do things differently. It just gives you that experience to be able to do it next time. Sometimes you need a close loss every once in a while, but this should motivate Bemidji State because and by the way, they've been doing it all season, whether win or lose, like they did on Saturday, but then also some of the wins they've gotten, they've raised the bar for our expectations. Where I think if we get this late in the season on a normal year, we go, yeah, maybe split, do what you can. But like you said, now the expectation is, hey, you guys should sweep and you should be able to do some damage here. It's on the road. You got to go to UMary and Minot, but these are two very winnable games that you need to take advantage of. And I think they've done a great job of raising the bar. So credit to Coach Boshi and credit to the rest of the team where credit's due. They've really raised their play. Kone's had a great season. John Sutherland, again, as we just mentioned, NSIC Player of the Week for the third time this season. Just what a really nice transfer from UMD, Grand Rapids native. Just a huge boon for this team this season. And they've had some players chip in from everywhere else, but just really important for this team to raise the expectations because I know they made the tournament a few years ago, but this has been the most kind of excitement and build we've had in a Bemidji State men's basketball team in some time.
Yeah, I'm currently working on flipping back through the years to see when the last time we had 14 wins. We're at 14 wins right now. And I'm looking back. We did 2019, 2020. That season we were 14. We had 14 wins total, as I can fix my camera here. But we still have 6 games left, at least 6 games left. So we could very well break that. Going forward. I can't see anything much further back that suggests I'm all the way back to 2015 now, and I'm not seeing any 14 plus win seasons. So this is the best season that Bemidji State's had in quite some time, and I think that they're going to hopefully be able to build on that. A 6 or well, it would end up being a 7-loss streak to end the season would be pretty disappointing to stay at that 14 mark. I'm not going to lie to you, but I think they can take care of business here. A sweep would be an absolutely phenomenal result. And then you got to start looking forward to the NSIC tournament if that happens. But at least splitting this weekend is a must. You have to at least win one of these games to try and stay afloat in that 4 seed, because it's going to get really dicey if you drop both of these games coming down to the end of the season.
Yeah, and by the way, looking in seasons past, I remember in I think it was the 2017-18 season, or maybe the 2018-19 season, where they got a playoff win against Mankato in the first round of the NSIC tournament. But outside of that, that's pretty much the biggest success story, and that was a big upset win for the Beavers that year. So I mean, for them to have the regular season success to back it up and try and more than just steal a game in the playoffs and have a chance to set yourself up for a nice little run, it's been impressive what Coach Boshi and company have been able to do. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's just been really nice to have a basketball team you can get behind, especially up in Bemidji, noted hockey school, to be able to have a season like this.
Yeah, the most wins, you have to go back to 2013-14 to see 18-9 overall record for Bemidji State. And I'm not going to say that we're going to win 4 of our last 6 to match that 18. We could get 4 wins, and then if you get anything in the NSIC tournament. So this is shaping up to be one of those type of seasons right now. I think we're 14-8 on the season. So
yeah,
it's been exciting. I'm not going to lie to you. Having a second sport, really be able to step up and be able to say, yeah, we're here. We're going to at least get some sort of postseason berth, because I hate to say it. I mean, we haven't had much other than men's hockey to really hang our hats on, other than, like you said, credit to the men's team. They did get a tournament win a couple years ago. But, at this point, it feels like a distant memory. So it's really good to have meaningful February basketball, and hopefully, I don't know if we'll make it all the way to March, but that'd be pretty cool to have meaningful March basketball to watch as well.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be awesome, and it'd be super, super fun. So let's move a little bit into some National Signing Day recruiting news. First off, let's start in college hockey. This comes courtesy of Beaver Territory, Lucas, friend of the podcast. He caught something yesterday or a couple days ago that Bemidji State is Poland's official college hockey team with 2 Polish players, is all the school has, but one commit on the men's side, one commit on the women's side. Ian, we talked a little bit with Lucas about that overseas recruiting and about how that's kind of impacted Bemidji State, and just I mean, I know you haven't been grinding tape on any of these recruits, but just like what's your kind of instant reaction?
Well, it's very good. I mean, there's only 2 now. Well, there is only 1 Polish player in men's or women's D1 hockey, and that is Jakub Lewandowski for the Beavers. And then now we'll be adding the first ever Polish women's player to the scene. Probably, I think Lucas said 24-25 season is when she'll be coming over.
I think that sounds right.
So I think that's good, because that's
Julia
something that
Zelenska, and I apologize in advance for butchering that name.
Yes, I think it's good. Because all these other schools, I hate to say it, man, we have to prepare ourselves for the day that St. Thomas is going to be a better program than the Beavers.
Don't forget Augustana's coming too.
It's going to happen. I'm just talking about Minnesota schools for now. And yeah, Augustana's going to come up here. You mean to tell me that there's another school in the Twin Cities now?
God forbid, St. Thomas being in the Twin Cities helps them out more than anything. And they have money, and they have a new
local
arena.
Kids that can't get in on the Gophers team. Wow, I don't have to go all the way to St. Cloud or Mankato or, God forbid, Duluth now. I can stay here in St. Paul and play for the Tommies. That's going to help them more than we would like to admit. Sooner or later, they will turn into a competitive program in the CCHA and in probably college hockey too. So I think the Beavers being able to reach out and get some good European prospects is really beneficial. Getting your foot in the door first. Tech has been really good at that. They usually have a lot of Finnish players. Tech has had a lot of Finnish players come in through that system. I believe, I'm not positive, but I believe Kyle Kukkonen, their freshman, might be Finnish. He's got a Finnish sounding name anyways. I apologize, Kyle, if you're not. But I swear I heard that he was, and they had, Tyler Heenanen, all those guys from down near my area, even Delano hockey, going up to Tech to play. So I think it's good for the Beavers to be able to reach into that, especially, Poland. If you're going to get more prospects, we'll be happy to take them, so reaching into that market early is a good thing.
Yeah, and now let's move on to football on the final 5 minutes or so of this podcast here, because it was National Signing Day. Some of these moves have already been said. If you follow Bemidji State football on Twitter, they can't officially, I think they really can't officially comment or retweet anything until today when pen hits paper. But in terms of, a guy committing, That's something that can make the rounds on Twitter. Guys for the Pioneer can like it and everything, and whatever. They can comment on it, but Bemidji State officially can't until today. So I just want to go over some of the big kind of names on this recruiting class, because of course with college football, especially Division II, there's not going to be a lot of guys who are just going to jump in from high school and start playing right away. They're almost all either going to get redshirted or spend their sophomore and freshman seasons likely kind of grinding their way through not playing to special teams to working in on offense and defense. So here's a transfer portal guy who's going to be very important for Bemidji, and that's Ali Muhammad. He signed during the early signing period. He's staying in the NSIC because he played for Minot State, so he's joining the Better Beavers. That's the Better Beaver Bureau over here, the BBB. And he was a semifinalist for the Harlan Hill and Don Hanson All-American. He's been playing at Minot State for 3 years. He's a 5'10", 205-pound running back. And with Jalen Fry leaving, that's a huge, you needed experience in that running back room. And we talked about it when we, on an earlier podcast, when he left, we said, hey, they're going to need to go get somebody in the transfer portal. And luckily in the state of college football, the way it is, you can just go get somebody like an Ali Muhammad and just have him come over onto this team and plug and play. And now you have, maybe somebody else emerges later in the season, but now at least you have that cushion of a veteran guy in that spot to make one of the younger guys prove that they're worthy to be in on there. So Ian, anything to comment on that one?
Well, yeah, I think it's good. You've got to be able to adapt with the way that college athletics and especially football seems to be trending. Being able to use the transfer portal as a tool to rebuild and kind of, I think it's a big way to kind of, like we said, retool on the fly. As you're like, oh man, we had a huge senior class, and we don't really want to rely on some of these freshmen next year necessarily. We want to give them the opportunity to redshirt and grow in our system. So we're going to get a fifth-year guy in here, or a third-year guy or something, and be able to have them learn for a couple of years while they learn our system. I think that's a big key thing, and I think Bemidji State seems to be doing what they can so far, at least, like you said, to change with the times. That's why a lot of coaches you see nowadays, they're phasing themselves out because they can't keep up with the transfer portal or whatever it may be. And I think that's good for Bolte to be able to do that. And I've seen, a couple other good looking signings just based off the small highlight tapes or reels that we've seen. They've been doing a good job so far. Why would I have any reason to doubt what they're doing going forward?
A couple other notable recruits, maybe isn't the right word, but transfers in. Jacob Dreitz is a transfer. He's a 6'0", 220-pound linebacker, played at M State, not Minnesota State, but M State, Minnesota State Community and Technical College over in Fergus Falls. So he's going to transfer and give the Beavers another experienced linebacker to throw in this defense. They also get an experienced DB, 5'10", 185-pound Devonta Roberts. He transfers from Rochester Community and Technical College down in southern Minnesota, so he's coming up north to Bemidji. And then just one other recruit, or maybe one or two others that just kind of catch my eye. One is locally, and I'm trying to find the kid's name here. There's a long list of guys that they have. Eli Pfeiffer is a freshman, an incoming freshman from Walker, so a little bit close to Bemidji, was a wide receiver there, had some nice plays. Who knows, if any fullback, long snapper, kind of what his position is listed as, but just a close connection there for the Beavs. And then there was one more in terms of just being really close to Bemidji, and that was they got a commit from Black Duck to roll in. And that was Ridge Flatness out of Black Duck, 6'0", 185-pound linebacker. So he's going to join the team. And I think maybe just kind of the sneaky, maybe under the wire, you probably will forget this guy, but in 2 years you'll remember him. Connor Carver, 6'2", 191-pound quarterback out of Dodge City, Iowa. And I was looking at some of his highlight tapes, and granted, it's a highlight tape, so we only see the good parts. We only see the really, really good stuff. But watching through some of his highlights, believe it or not, Bolte likes a quarterback who can just sling the football, throw it deep, be a little fast and loose with the football. And Connor Carver seems like a guy who's got some potential, able to get out of the pocket, keep his head up, find some guys deep, nice throw on the run, going to the right and to the left. Now it's against high school. It's in Iowa. So like take it with a grain of salt until he gets to Division II, but let him sit and cook behind Alt for a year or two. I don't know who Bemidji State kind of has, what the succession plan exactly looks like, but, and these are all incoming high school seniors who are turning into college freshmen. We don't know if they're going to be good or not, but hey, it's just a really fun to kind of see. So Ian, that was a lot. Anything as we wrap up the podcast?
I would like to say a very quick apology to Kyle Kukkonen, freshman forward for the Michigan Tech Huskies. I was thinking of Topi Heiskanen, their freshman defender, who is from Finland. Kukkonen is from Maple Grove, Minnesota. So
I mean, that's
I
basically
apologize.
Finland. So.
The second it left my mouth, I'm like, God, that doesn't sound right. I feel like I messed that up. I better check that. So apologies to Mr. Kukkonen. But yeah, plenty of good for the Beavers football team. Hopefully they can sweep Tech. Obviously, that's the goal. Hopefully everybody wins every game this weekend. Women's hockey, St. Thomas this weekend. If you want to get 7th place, you got to sweep them.
Let's go Beavs. This has been the Beaver Banter Podcast.